With the Earth about to complete another revolution around the Sun, some world leaders are just settling into their new roles, while others are preparing for electoral tests, as 2026 is chock full of interesting and consequential elections around the world. So, as has become tradition on this channel, in this video we're going to have a look at 12 elections taking place next year, which we think you should keep an eye on. The next issue of our magazine, Too Long, is coming out soon, with this issue focusing on realignment in the Middle East, discussing how recent events fundamentally reshape the region. Pre-order your copy or subscribe by clicking the link in the description. One of next year's most anticipated elections will be the US midterms on November the 3rd. The Democratic Party, energised by their strong performance at last month's elections, is eyeing another blue wave, aiming to break the Republican trifecta by winning control of the House of Representatives, which would put them in a position to act as a legislative check on President Trump, whose falling approval ratings and issues from affordability to Epstein have made him politically vulnerable. Control of the Senate is also up for grabs, but with an electoral map that favours Republicans, it's a much bigger challenge for Democrats to flip the upper chamber. Down in South America, two left-wing governments are defending their records. In Brazil, 80-year-old President Lula da Silva has said he intends to seek re-election in October, a move that could earn him a fourth term, though split across two non-consecutive periods. Lula goes into 2026 in a stronger position than perhaps some expected. His foe, ex-President Bolsonaro, is in prison following his conviction for an attempted coup. Lula's approval ratings have ticked back up thanks to his defiant and successful response to Trump's trade war, and he leads his potential right-wing rivals in the polls. In Colombia, incumbent leftist President Gustavo Petro is ineligible for a second term, but will be hoping his alliance's nominee, Senator Ivan Cepeda, can emerge victorious in May out of what is still a crowded field of candidates. Petro's presidency has been rocky. His goal of total peace remains elusive, his reform agenda has faced hurdles, and he's locked horns with Donald Trump, who could bring war to Colombia's doorstep with an attack on neighbouring Venezuela. However, new restrictions on political polling have clouded the race and made it hard to gauge which direction the country may be leading in. Also in May, local elections in England and parliamentary elections in Scotland and Wales could be make or break for the unpopular incumbent Labour government, as the right-wing populist Reform UK and left-wing Green Party challenge Labour's position. In Scotland, the pro-independence SNP are hoping to secure a fifth consecutive victory and have a steady polling lead, albeit with a diminished vote share after a few years of party turmoil. The party will claim a mandate for a second independence referendum if the SNP wins a majority of seats in the Scottish Parliament, though the UK government has ruled out another referendum. In Wales, Labour's century of dominance could be on course to end, as Reform UK and the centre-left pro-independence Plaid Cymru jostle for first place. Looking to the EU now, Hungary's longtime Prime Minister Viktor Orbán faces his toughest election yet in April. After 15 years of populist rule, Orbán's Fidesz party is now behind in the polls to the upstart Teaser party, which has been fueled by frustration at corruption and democratic backsliding. In June, crucial parliamentary elections will be held in Armenia, which over the past few years has seen major political developments. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has attempted to pull the small country away from Russia's orbit and orient it towards the West instead. He's been pushing for a peace settlement with longtime adversary Azerbaijan and normalisation with past foe Turkey, and has found himself in an escalating clash with the Church. Given the election's potential to shape Armenia's geopolitical path, it will likely draw international attention and interference. An election, due by late October, also looms in Israel. It's first since the October 7th, 2023 attack, and following years of increasing polarisation, militarisation and international isolation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has managed to hold off persistent calls for an early vote by keeping his fragile ultra-nationalist coalition together, as post-October 7th it seemed all but certain that voters would eject him at their first opportunity. However, Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister is a consummate political survivor, and his Likud party gradually climbed back into the lead in the polls, but current polling suggests his coalition would fall short of a majority, potentially setting Israel up for political gridlock. In Africa, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni is all but guaranteed to extend his 40-year rule in January, where for a second election in a row he's being challenged by opposition leader Bobi Wine. As one of several of the continent's ageing autocrats holding on to power, Museveni's victory may be a foregone conclusion. But as analysts note, what comes next is less certain. With the prospect of election-related popular unrest and behind-the-scenes manoeuvring by potential future successors, including the president's erratic but powerful son. Meanwhile, 2 South Asian countries will hold their first elections since their governments were overthrown. Bangladesh's high-stakes and potentially turbulent election will take place in February, alongside a referendum on a reform charter, 18 months after the authoritarian Awami League was toppled by mass protests. While the election could mean the return of the ousted party's rival, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the revolution has opened up space for new political actors, including the student-led National Citizen Party, which emerged out of the uprising, and a previously suppressed Islamist party, Jamaat-e-Islami, which has enjoyed something of a resurgence. Similarly, a fresh election is planned for March in Nepal, whose government was overthrown by Gen Z protests in September this year. Holding an election just 6 months after the country's political order broke down is a big logistical challenge for the interim government. But a surge in new political formations and voter registrations suggest high anticipation for the vote. Thailand will likely hold a general election in early 2026, as recently appointed Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul agreed to dissolve Parliament within 4 months as part of a deal to make him Prime Minister a couple of months ago. Since Thailand's last election in 2023, there's been major political upheaval, including the ousting of 2 prime ministers, the forging and breaking of all sorts of political alliances, and a brief military clash with Cambodia. The Progressive Reformist People's Party is hoping to take advantage of the fall of the influential Shinawatra family and win a second election in a row, but this time without being locked out of power by the establishment. However, they face an increasingly powerful and popular opponent in the conservative and royalist Bumjaitai party, led by the politically savvy Prime Minister Anutin. And finally, New Zealand will go to the polls by mid-December, in an election that, a year out, could go either way, with the centre-right National Party-led coalition looking for another term, and the centre-left Labour opposition seeking a return to government, and the ebbs and flows of smaller parties likely to play an important role. So that's our list, but there are plenty more elections happening. So let us know what you'll be watching and what you think might happen. Now, that's quite a lot of information we've thrown your way, and that's after we've simplified it down for you. So you can only imagine how overwhelming it is to sift through the hundreds of outlets reporting on it online to just find out what happened. Luckily for all of us, there's a website and app that collects all those articles and puts them all in one easy-to-access place. And that website is, you guessed it, Ground News. Not only does Ground News assemble all these articles, but it also offers a breakdown into bias distribution, factuality, and ownership of each individual source, giving you the opportunity to dive deep into the information that may have been hidden from you previously. For example, if we take this story on Brazil's President Lula running for another term, we can see that there are 135 sources currently reporting on it, with most of the coverage coming from the centre. If we use the handy bias comparison feature, we can see that the left emphasises his victory over Bolsonaro, and the right focuses on his potential rivals. We can also filter and sort every story by their factuality level, helping you to easily grasp the reliability of each outlet. Or even take a more extensive look at who owns each of these outlets, keeping you fully informed on who's trying to feed you information online. Even if you want to stay close to home and explore what's being said in your area, Ground News can break down all of your local news, and even shows you stories you might have missed, introducing you to their blind spot feature. Here you can discover everything that's being disproportionately reported by one side or the other, whether it's a mile from your house or on the other side of the world. That's just scratching the surface of what Ground News has to offer. So if you're interested, there's no better time to sign up, as we're partnering with them to offer 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. And just in time for the holiday season, you can even gift a subscription to a friend or family member for the same 40% discount. All you have to do is subscribe through the link in the description, go to ground.news/TLDR or scan the QR code on screen, and you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.